Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and things are looking really good for Last Epoch right now. Path of Exile 2 has hit mostly negative recent reviews on Steam, and Diablo 4 unveiled its 2025 roadmap this week, and it doesn't seem to be inspiring confidence in the player base. Meanwhile, Last Epoch's hype week leading up to its Season 2 launch next Thursday has been getting a lot of players excited. We'll talk about all that and more in this week's news wrap-up video, and we're going to start with Diablo 4. We got this week again the reveal of the roadmap for D4 in 2025 leading into 2026, and I got to interview Brent Gibson, game director on Diablo 4, about the roadmap to get more context. If you haven't seen my interview, you can find it on my website, Rhykker.com, which brings us to a word from this video's sponsor, Squarespace. I built my website using Squarespace, and I was able to do everything myself, quickly and easily, and with zero education in the field, all thanks to how easy Squarespace is to work with. Squarespace even has a new AI tool called Design Intelligence, which combines 2 decades of industry-leading web design expertise with the latest AI tech to empower you to build a beautiful-looking, personalized website made exactly for your needs and your unique identity. Squarespace even has optimized SEO tools so that you can launch your website and start getting views as quickly as possible. Squarespace is flexible for any kind of website, with tons of design options to pick from. You can easily connect all your social accounts, and also upload your video content and organize your video library. You can sell products or services, and with Squarespace Payment, you have an easy way to manage your payments in one place. You're just a few clicks away from being able to receive payments through your website, all while offering customers popular payment methods like Apple Pay, ClearPay, Klarna, and ACH Direct Debit. Basically, if you want to build a website, I recommend Squarespace. So head to squarespace.com/Rhykker or click the link in the description to start your free trial and use code Rhykker to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/RHYKKER and use code Rhykker. Alright, back to Diablo 4 news. Again, Blizzard just dropped their roadmap for D4's future, laying out plans all the way through 2025 and 2026. They give us a tease of the seasonal updates coming, as well as a new expansion, new ranking system coming in 2026, along with leaderboards. Now, earlier this year at a convention, Diablo boss Rod Ferguson had spoken about how when they revealed a roadmap for Diablo Immortal, that really energized the player base, that got people logging in and playing, and I imagine the D4 roadmap was done in order to have that same effect in D4, and I don't think that's going to happen given the preliminary responses to the roadmap. Part of that was seeing some features that players have been asking for, like leaderboards, being put off all the way to 2026. But I think the big part of it was that the roadmap basically just showed that we can expect largely more of the same going forward, with seasons that bring us seasonal powers, the kind that we've sort of come to expect by now. But I do think that in my interview with Brent Gibson, we learned a little bit more that gives more reason to be hopeful for the future. Part of that was because he spoke about what felt like pretty significant changes or reworks to Nightmare Dungeons as well as Infernal Hordes. Another part was that he effectively said that as we get later and later into the roadmap, things can be very much more subject to change. They want to remain reactive to the community. Also, for players who had felt that Diablo 4 was getting just way too easy, starting with Season 8, there's meant to be much more focus on bringing challenge back to the game without making it, just soul-crushing for newer players. Challenge and variety were 2 words that he focused on. Again, though, the majority of the community reactions to the roadmap have been to see it as a pretty weak roadmap. It's sort of starting to feel like just a copy-paste of seasonal powers, which is already what we were starting to feel, and now it's basically confirmed to be copy-paste powers for the rest of the year. It almost feels as though the devs saw how much people loved Season 2, and they're just kind of modeling all future seasons off of that formula. It's a good formula, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with giving us borrowed power, but the vehicle through which that power comes probably would be good if we can shake it up a bit more here and there. Even Season 3 getting the Seneschal, at least it was a little bit different. That power was on something else. But for instance, in other games, we'll see seasons that do things like, here's this entire, evolving weapon crafting mechanic, or here's a whole little, town management thing where you can get different resources through an entirely new, system. Now, even Mike Ibarra, former Blizzard president, chimed in on Twitter with some pretty candid feedback. He tweeted, quote, "My personal opinion on the top Diablo 4 issues. 1. Don't ship to check a box. Seasons need to get off the cycle of shipping, spending 2 months to fix issues, then repeating. 2. Pause and give the team time to really address the end game issues. Playing for a week to then 1 or 3 shot a uber boss 500 times for a unique, then quitting until next season is fundamentally not fun. 3. Expansion schedule is too long, should be yearly. Reduce story investment, costs so much for a one-time element in an ARPG, and focus on new classes, new mob types, new endgame activities that last more than a few days. If the cycle continues to ship without fixing the fundamental issues, then I'm not sure where Diablo is going. You can add all the endgame activities you want, but you'll be running in place with the same issues. At some point, there's just so many random things, it's not worth the effort." And in response to someone replying that the game has too much loot, he said, "Definitely needs a loot filter that works." Now, on the endgame side of things, there's a big question mark around the whole Nightmare Dungeon rework that's happening and how that might play into and fit into things, the whole dungeon escalation thing. And we also saw some blue posts on Reddit, people like Pez Radar coming in and emphasizing that there is a lot more that they just weren't able to talk about yet. It's kind of teased in the end more on the roadmap. It's unfortunate that they were not able to either tease it or talk about it. And yes, it does kind of draw into question the purpose of the roadmap if all you can really show is the stuff that's pretty much expected. Now, I turn the question to you folks. Do you think that this roadmap was a good idea or a bad idea? Again, I believe the intent was for it to get people hype and excited. Do you feel that it's had actually the opposite effect and that they were better off not revealing this? Again, based on what they're saying, it does sound like there is more exciting stuff going on. They're just not able to talk about it yet or put it on that roadmap. Would have been best to wait for a time when they could. Sound off in the comments with your thoughts. Oh, one last thing though, actually. On the roadmap that was publicly revealed, there's a slight difference to the roadmap that was shown to me in preparation of my interview, and it's in the 2026 section on what is coming in the future. And they have a section that says new something and it's hidden by flames. Now, in the version that I got, that new something wasn't entirely hidden by flames, and I was able to analyze it in Photoshop and see that it said new class. So I just thought it was noteworthy that after I pointed out to them that I could figure out that said new class, that they went and hid that for the public version. All right, moving on to Path of Exile news. Ooh, where do we start here? Okay. Patch 0.2 for Path of Exile 2, aka Dawn of the Hunt, dropped 8 days ago now. And I don't even know that I can say it's been divisive. It's been pretty not well received by fans, especially in the early days before GGG had a chance to drop some emergency patches, before there was an interview with Zizaran, before people were able to start feeling good about the game again. Things got pretty dire there for a while. On Steam, the game has reached mostly negative reviews, as per recent reviews at least. It hasn't affected the overall reviews, but recent reviews are mostly negative. Dawn of the Hunt was meant to be a huge win for the game. So many people were looking forward to the Huntress, and just it turned into a whole what is going on moment from the community. Some of the bigger pain points were that the whole emphasis on combo-based combat, while theoretically, sure, that sounds cool on paper, but in practice, having to pull off complex combos multiple times just to take out white monsters, it becomes tedious over time, and that's if the monsters even give you a chance to do it. Monsters' speed is so fast that you can't get a combo off, and if your combo is interrupted, then it's basically just a huge waste of time. Other complaints are about the size of the maps. The campaign is just way too long to go through again. You know, we're talking for like the best players, maybe 10 hours, average, you know, maybe 20 to 30. And if you're a little bit slower, we're talking 30 plus hours to finish the campaign. A part of that is due to, especially in Act 3, the zone size is getting so large. And then there's the loot crisis. I don't know what happened. I had a very different experience than when I first played PoE 2. I think I was lucky with my loot on my first playthrough, and I was also playing a minion witch, so my weapon wasn't all that important, like getting a good weapon that all my damage would scale off of. I was playing a huntress, and Act 1 was good. Act 2, by the time I got to Act 3, I just felt like I was just constantly struggling at everything. Everything felt like a struggle. I couldn't have enough gold to really buy anything. All of my gold was being spent on respeccing, just kind of changing things here and there, changing strength to dex, dex to strength to meet, gear and skill attributes, or just realizing, okay, this build isn't working out. Let me see if I can change a couple things to something better to improve my build. Like, I just constantly poor, constantly broke. I'm never finding any crafting resources, crafting currency. I could like maybe add another modifier to a blue item. That's about it. I wasn't getting any good drops either. Fortunately, I was playing with a couple other people in my party. They were actually the ones giving me weapon upgrades. If not for them, I would have just been screwed. The couple times I got a weapon upgrade, a better spear, it was because someone in my party happened to be able to buy it from their shop for me, because I just had no luck with drops. And you really feel the struggle being a build that depends on your weapon for your damage. Seeing your level going higher and higher, you're not getting a new weapon. You're falling increasingly behind on DPS. It's taking longer and longer to kill monsters. You're getting drops for freaking every other class and build except for your own. So I'm struggling to get loot. I'm struggling to have gold to even afford respecs. I'm struggling to kill monsters. Just everything is a struggle. I don't feel strong. I'm not getting any good, satisfying moments. I'm getting no good gear. So like all my resists are garbage because I don't have any items. I don't have any currency. I can't do anything about it. I can't even level up my skill gems anymore because I can't meet the stat requirements for the higher tier skill gems. Now, if you folks would remember from last week, my initial impression was positive. Again, early levels, Act 1, all that felt good, even going into Act 2. But just as things were going further and further, and my bad luck was compounding and compounding and compounding, I just started to feel like I'm drowning more and more in every aspect of the game. And the game just makes me feel like I'm bad and I should feel bad. Now, don't get me wrong, I think having a challenging game is totally okay, but I think games that are going to be challenging and are going to make you struggle, I think the more the struggle, the better the payoff has to be. But when it's just struggle, and never any payoff, it just becomes soul-crushing. So again, initial response to Dawn of the Hunt was not great, but to GGG's credit, they were fast to respond. They seemed to work throughout the weekend. First 2 days, they were putting out emergency patches to tweak things here and there. And then they also had what was a pretty intense interview led by streamer Zizaran. And it started off a little hostile from both camps. Zizaran opened with, he did a good job representing the Vox Populi. The community was pretty upset at that point, and so, kind of asking what the hell. Sort of set off a bit of a defensive tone from Jonathan in his responses, but towards the end of the interview, or as the interview kept going, things smoothed out, and Jonathan even apologized for his defensive tone. I mean, you gotta understand, from his perspective, this is his baby. He's very invested. He's clearly super passionate about the game, super invested in it. They've just come off of a weekend of intense work, probably a lot of grind, and then just getting a ton of backlash from the community, a lot of personal attacks, which are completely uncalled for, on him and his character. It's understandable why he would be defensive, but I'm glad that things did smooth out. Mark was absolutely indispensable in that interview. He truly was the MVP, and I think after the interview, a lot of the community felt a lot better about where things would be going. In the wake of that interview, we saw almost immediate action being taken by GGG, and by the end of the week, we got a patch that addressed enemy move speed, which again was one of the big things, right? We have this combo-based gameplay. You can't pull off your combos because enemies are coming at you too fast. We're getting buffs to crafting via new runes that'll allow you to add stat like strength, intelligence, dex into your gear to help with gearing, to help with meeting the requirements for your gems or for your other gear. We're talking about quality of life updates. We're talking about rare mobs now always showing on the minimap. Great for those maps where you have to clear all rare mobs. And they at least said that they're going to take a look at loot drop increases. During the interview, it seemed as though there was a disconnect between Jonathan's experience and the loot that he was getting and what a lot of the player base are experiencing, where Jonathan kind of felt like, well, my loot drops are fine. I don't know what's going on. That's one thing that as well Jonathan kind of clarified. Like, he goes back and he plays the game every day. So, this isn't a dev who doesn't play his own game. I've seen a lot of calls from the community of like, hey, can we see some footage of these guys playing the game? Because it seems they're playing a different game than us or something. But Jonathan, he definitely plays the game. And something that he was expressing was he wants the game to remain fun for him, because how can he make the game good if the game that he's making is a game that isn't fun for him? That's why he really wants there to always be challenge in the game, even in Act 1, because once the game is no longer challenging, I guess it's just not going to be fun for him. I do think, however, it should be taken into consideration that a dev of the game who plays the game every day and has basically full knowledge of the game and its systems is going to be on a higher level of play than average gamer schmuck who's just logging in, and so they're gonna have a very different experience than the literal guy who made the game. But Jonathan made a comment, for instance, saying like, oh, like you're running out of crafting materials. Well, what's wrong? Aren't you like breaking down the rare items you get? And I'm like, dude, what rare items? Like, I think I'm doing everything the game is telling me to do, which is to salvage, disenchant anything that I can at the salvage bench, anything that I can, and then sell anything else. And I'm constantly out of gold and crafting materials. But again, they said that they're going to at least look into it and maybe try to understand why there is that disconnect between their perception and what some people are experiencing. So definitely props where they are due. The devs have been very responsive, even agreeing to just go on that interview, knowing that they were walking into what was likely to be a hostile interview. Not many devs will put themselves in that position. We even saw minions get some love in yesterday's patch, and that wasn't even the end of the changes coming. At the end of the week, the devs announced another patch coming next week, in which we'll be able to respec our ascendancies. This has been a hugely requested feature, and the week definitely ended on a positive note, with the community feeling like the devs are making rapid changes, the kind that you would hope to get in an early access. And I think altogether things are looking far more promising and hopeful now. For my own experience, I logged in and played a bit more after the latest patch, and while I don't think it's the patch itself, I think I'm actually also having a better experience now. Maybe it's just because I've reached a tipping point with my build and my respecs. Maybe it's because I just got a GG weapon, or maybe it's because now I'm playing solo instead of in a party, but now I feel like I'm doing damage. Jury's still out on the loot though. Still though, it's clear that GGG is walking a tightrope. They want to make a slow-paced, challenging game for a player base that has historically liked fast-paced, relatively easy games. And for those that aren't necessarily opposed to the challenge, it's all very conditional in how to find the fun in the challenge. And there's a bunch of different dials here, and if they are not dialed in the right way, players are going to complain. And I'm seeing PoE 1 players now losing hope about getting an announcement anytime soon, because presumably with the state of PoE 2, they're going to need all hands on deck to get things into another good state, which means they can't afford to put resources onto the next league of PoE 1. But I turn the question to you folks. How are you feeling about PoE 2? How are you feeling after the interview? Are you still hopeful for PoE 2? Are you enjoying the update? Are you deciding you're going to come back to this game at a later point? Sound off in the comments with your thoughts. And moving on to Last Epoch news, as I know a lot of players are now happily turning over to Last Epoch in the wake of everything that's been going on. Season 2 again launches April 17th. It's bringing endgame updates, class reworks, massive quality of life changes. Oh, and you can actually get a capybara pet. I got 2 videos that I posted earlier this week that go over some of the new content coming. Do check those out if you haven't seen it. But some of the highlights include the new Weaver tree. So this is a game changer for the endgame monolith system. It is effectively a progression tree. You're going to earn dozens of points that you can allocate in this, and it's going to allow you to customize your endgame experience, including the ability to target farm things. So let's say you have an item and you want to find more of that item. You can put that item into the tree. It makes a Xerox of it, and like let's say a red ring, and then you take it out. The tree is going to remember that item, and it's going to increase your drop chances of getting that item. The tree will also do stuff like give you the ability to remove arena echoes from your monolith. We're also getting new echoes, 36 unique echoes called woven echoes. You can slot these right into your echo web, so even more ability to customize your endgame experience. The Sentinel class is getting an entire rework here. The Marksman is getting the new Heartseeker skill, which is Diablo 2's guided arrow brought into 2025. That's what I'm planning to main going into Season 2. Crafting's getting a bunch of love, as is itemization. We're seeing 6 new ways to craft items. We're seeing new runes. We're also seeing balance changes, global nerfs to damage over time effects on players. We're getting buffs to a bunch of underperforming skills, updated unique items, new chase items. And for anyone who has not played Last Epoch, probably the best self-found experience, the best solo player experience that you can get in an ARPG in 2025 is going to be Last Epoch. If you haven't heard me say it a million times before, they solved the issue between balancing a game between trade and between no trade. Because some players love to trade and some players don't. And if you balance the game around trade, then people that don't trade tend to feel starved of gear, like in Last Epoch. Or if you balance around there being no trade, then, well, trading makes the game just way too easy because the game has to be feasible for non-trade players, right? Well, they allow you to basically pick, are you joining the trade guild or the non-trade guild? And if you join the non-trade guild, then you are going to get more drops and you'll be able to customize what drops you get. And you still can play with your friend who is in the trade guild. He just can't give you gear that he traded for, but you can still play together. So yeah, Last Epoch is a game that you can start playing in Season 2 without reading a build guide. The game isn't, at least at the start, it's not too challenging. You can build your own build, explore the game. It's not crushingly punishing. It encourages you to experiment. The crafting system is something you're going to want to engage with from low level. You don't need a spreadsheet and 5 guides to get started. You can jump in, play through the campaign without following anything, and have a good time. But I turn the question to you folks. Are you hyped for Season 2? What build are you planning to try out? Sound off in the comments. All right, moving on to some Nintendo news. As we mentioned last week, the Switch 2 releasing for $450. And it doesn't even come with a free tutorial game. The tutorial game called The Welcome Tour is going to run you $10. Even though it's called Welcome Tour, they couldn't just give it to us for free. Like Wii Sports, which ended up being immensely popular, so I can kind of see, all right, well, everyone loved Wii Sports. If only we had charged for that, how much money we could have gotten. But this doesn't seem to be a Wii Sports. It's really kind of just a tutorial on how to even use the Switch 2. It's a virtual exhibition that helps players explore the new hardware through tech demos and mini games. And they're charging $10 for it. Now, IGN spoke to Bill Trinan, VP at Nintendo of America, and he said that it's really meant for people who want to dive deep into the specs and features of the Switch. He also said that the dev team poured a lot of work into it, so they felt that $10 was a good value for this product. And look, no one's saying there's no value in the product. No one's saying that people didn't work hard on it, but it is kind of just a self-guided ad for the console that you just paid almost $500 for. I've seen feedback from people who actually got to try the Welcome Tour saying that it's not something that has replay value. It's basically just a gimmick that guides you through the features of the game and is not worth paying for. But what do you folks think? Should this have been a free part of the Switch 2, or is Nintendo in the right for charging for this? Now, we'd also spoken last week about how Mario Kart World is going to cost $80 or $90 if you want the physical copy of it. Now, IGN pressed Bill Trinan about this, and his answer was basically the same, saying that whenever they decide on how to price something, they look at what is this worth. So they look at Mario Kart, they see that it's a big game, vast, open world now, and he believes that it is worth this premium price. Now, it is absolutely true that games have not kept up in price with inflation. And when we were seeing games start to emerge at the $70 price point for the first time, 1 or 2 years ago, I believe I even sided with arguing that, games haven't kept up with inflation. It's more expensive to make games today than ever before, and prices really haven't changed all that much. If you were to make them keep up with inflation, games would be about $100. Now, the thing is, we just had that price adjustment to $70. Are we already going now to $80 so soon? And the reality is that while, yes, even with this, games still aren't keeping up with inflation, you know what else isn't keeping up with inflation? Salaries. Salaries aren't keeping up with inflation. A lot of people are just not going to be able to afford games if they're going to cost $80+. This isn't a matter of players being cheap and not wanting to pay what a game is worth. A lot of gamers are just going to get priced out of gaming the way they've enjoyed gaming. A lot of people like to buy a new game every month, maybe, play that game, and then move on to the next game. And how are you going to do that if every game is going to start costing $80 and you're on a strict budget? I do believe that video games give you better value per dollar than so many other forms of entertainment out there. And I'm the kind of gamer that buys a game and plays that game for years. I put in hundreds to thousands to 10,000s of hours into one game. So yeah, I'm laughing my way to the bank if I spend, $60 or, $30 on discount on a game that I get 10 years of fun out of. For myself, spending $100 on a game and then not buying another game for at least a couple of years isn't as big a deal as a lot of the average gamer nowadays. They will buy many games per year. And this is how they enjoy games. They're not going to spend hundreds of hours on one game. So if this is the way prices are going to go, we're likely to see AAA games become a rare treat that maybe you'll buy one per year, and then you're going to fill out your other games with, the discount bin on Steam or free-to-play games. But I turn the question to you folks. What's your take? Do you think that a game like Mario Kart World justifies an $80 price tag? Do you think you will buy as many games as you normally buy if games just globally rise to $80? Or is this going to completely change your spending habits on video gaming? Sound off in the comments. We're going to end here by clearing up some confusion about Hades 2. There's been a bit of buzz this week over news that Hades 2 would be a Nintendo Switch 2 console exclusive at launch. To clarify, it is still launching on PC. It's just that it's not launching on Xbox or PlayStation. So it is going to be exclusive to Switch and PC at launch. And that's going to wrap up this week's video, folks. But do be sure to check out last week's video in which we covered all the major Nintendo Switch 2 reveals and their controversies. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykkers Raiders for more gaming content.